Howdy, everyone. So today my group members and I are going to be talking about the ethics of gene editing. Now, before we get into anything like specific, I want to give a brief overview of what gene editing actually is. And it's essentially the insertion, deletion, modification, or replacement of a DNA strand in a living organism. And that can be plants, animals, and eventually maybe even humans. Now, gene editing first came around in the late 1980s, but it took a really big leap in its achievements in 2009 with CRISPR technology. Some examples of gene editing are the double strand break repair, which is just a different form of gene editing where they break the actual DNA and then insert a new form, as well as the engineered nucleases, which is where CRISPR technology really comes into play.
Howdy, my name is Delaney Whitworth, and unfortunately Jordan cannot be here with us today to record, so I will be speaking on his behalf. That being said, let's talk about how gene editing could benefit us. Gene editing, such as CRISPR, which Ashwin spoke about earlier, was developed in 2009. CRISPR can be used to alter a person's specific genes responsible for diseases. Now let's apply that to animal science. Pigs have been used as a leading biomedical model for gene editing as they are anatomically, physiologically, and genetically similar to humans. Scientists have successfully changed 2 letters in a pig's genome so that the pig is no longer susceptible to transmissible gastroenteritis virus. So let's jump into the scientific perspective, specifically relating to the ethics of practicing gene editing. Again, I will be speaking on behalf of my teammate Keaton. With gene editing, scientists are able to change genetics within animals in order to prevent diseases and other health issues that may arise and may harm a species of animals. Scientifically, gene editing could be both ethical and unethical, depending on how it is practiced. Scientists know that by changing a strand of DNA within an animal, they may cause serious issues for future generations of that animal. Although this is an unintentional act, scientists know that this is a possible consequence. Scientists also are aware that when editing DNA, they may be able to completely wipe out health issues, diseases, and possible genetic problems within a species. Saving animals from these issues is an excellent example of how gene editing can be ethical.
Gene editing is looked at in many different ways. Some look at it as a positive, some look at it as a negative. Gene editing has its perceptions, especially by the public. These perceptions are usually about morale and the intentions of editing genes. Most people believe it is okay if this technique is used with good morale because gene editing can improve an animal's life experience tremendously and will have positive effects on their overall life. The public just want best for these animals and make sure that these techniques are being used correctly with good intentions. There are many different perceptions of gene editing from the public, but overall, they are okay with this process if it is not taken advantage of and used in the wrong way.
For supporting positive perceptions of gene editing, the examples are Keene Ranch Santa Gratuitous, which is a beef bovine. The quote from the article says, Keene Ranch developed the Santa Gratuitous breed of cattle in the 1920s in response to a need to have cattle that could perform in the challenging South Texas environment. The other example is CRISPR, or CRISPR, gene editing corrects muscular dystrophy in pigs. The Duchenne muscular dystrophy, DMD, is one of the most common and most devastating muscular diseases, greatly reducing patients' quality of life and life expectancy. Now, researchers in Germany have managed to use the CRISPR gene editing tool to correct the condition in pigs, bringing the treatment even closer to human trials.
Unfortunately, with public opinions come negative public perception. Gene editing can ultimately lead to birth defects, unintended abortions, and an increase in the chances of poor animal management. Overall, these combined could lead to poor animal health. Gene editing will lead to an increase of commercial animal husbandry, increasing the number of confined animal feeding operations, and thus could ultimately lead to pollution and environment degradation. Additionally, edited genes could spread to natural population and affect an area's native species. There are also public health concerns. E. coli and other diseases due to overcrowding of animals combined with potential poor animal waste management could ultimately negatively affect the public. There's also the concern of food safety, as abnormal proteins could potentially make new food allergies. Of course, there are always two sides to each argument. We would like to discuss some potential solutions or even rebuttals to the negative public perception of genetic engineering. While gene editing can cause issues with accidental abortions and chances of poor animal management, gene editing can remove genes that cause issues in the livestock. Overall, this would greatly improve the animals and they would potentially be better off. Gene editing will lead to an increase in confined animal feeding operations, but with proper care and maintenance, we won't face an increase in pollution, and it will have little risk in affecting native species. As long as the areas that are populated by animals that have received the gene editing are strictly maintained and managed, there should be little spread of diseases such as E. coli that could affect the human population. Overall, gene editing can be overwhelmingly beneficial to livestock. The negative public perception surrounding unintentional impedations to the reproduction of livestock and the overall health of livestock in general are valid. The concerns of potentially polluting surrounding environments and negatively affecting native wildlife are valid as well. But we must remember, with proper and responsible livestock ownership, native wildlife and surrounding environments would face little to no issues involving gene editing. Ultimately, the science surrounding gene editing will continue to evolve. As long as we continue to hold one another and the science community accountable to the utmost ethical standards, the potential to help overall livestock populations in such a grand way is something the majority of public perception views worth continuing to explore.